All right, folks, we're going to try something a little different today. We're going to do a first-person view of the Rubishack here. You can see we got the firewall all painted. This little box of goodies just showed up. We've got our gauges, our master kill switch, key switch, a little basic fuse box, some toggle switches with little boots on them. I don't know if we need the boots, but the plan is anyway, we got our throttle pedal painted up and our brake pedal, and the plan is now to start throwing this thing together, right? So over here on the floor, we've got our master cylinder. That'll be the first thing to go in for our brakes. And we've got our brake lines right here that we just got made. Actually, the shop reused the old fittings. I'm not sure why. I'm guessing that they're all different threads for some reason. So I'm guessing it was easier just to reuse them than to try and find lines with matching threads, but that's fine. We'll get those on there, so we'll have brakes. And we'll get our steering done, and I don't know what all we'll get done today, but we're gonna put in best effort into something here. So I think we'll start right now with hanging the master cylinder. Now I think this master cylinder is still good. It's a bit wet from everything, probably being upside down and everything else, but we'll try it anyway. It had brakes last year, and I think it had brakes when I pulled the truck in, but the tires were flat. But anyway, we'll if it's no good, we'll get a new one. So you can see there, I plasma cut the holes in the firewall to suit the master cylinder. I'm curious, you let me know in the comments what you think of this first-person view. It makes it a little bit easier for me. I think I could probably deliver more consistent content this way than actually like framing every shot with tripods and whatnot. I found that kind of overwhelming, and you know, you got to kind of choose between making a video and getting your work done, and you know, at some point you got to get your work done. So we'll give this a try for today and see how you guys respond, and we'll go from there. So if you can see under there, down here. I'm gonna have to go into the scrapyard and find a new horseshoe clip for that. It got lost in the mix somewhere. Oh my God, I'm fat. Fat people aren't meant to sit on their ass, or at least not on the ground. 1, 2, buckle my shoe. Then you can see here our shifter linkage. That'll probably be one of the last things to go in, just because we've got to put the plywood down on the floor first. Probably tomorrow I'll go to the hardware store and pick up the plywood and try and I'm going to paint it first so that it's a little bit weatherproof before I screw it down. Already I can tell this footage is a little bit shaky, but I think we can edit that out. Not get too worried about it right now. We can always do a better job next time, right? This color is a bit of a mix and match. If you watch the last video, you see we just kind of went into our paint fridge and threw all the colors we had together in a pot, and it got us this color, which is somewhat close to the seats we got for this thing out of a 1970s Winnebago. So it's maybe a little bit more green than the seats, but it's close enough for a budget build. So we've got that bolted in now. Next thing we got to do is get the lines hooked up. If I can remember where they go. These lines are, we had to get them made a little bit longer because the master cylinder is probably 6 inches higher than it was when it was in the truck. So I'll get down from here and try and find the right wrenches to put this together. I think it's might even be metric. At 11. We need a 10. And we need 14. So this is where it goes. You can see up here, that's maybe a proportioning valve. And then the lines come out the bottom and go down here to a block that diverts out to our rear brakes and to our front brakes. So maybe that's why they made everything a different size, so that whoever was in the factory putting these together on a Friday didn't put things together in the wrong order. Now these threads, I don't know if you can see there, but they're pretty ugly. So I'm gonna get a little wire wheel on my drill here and clean some of the crap out of them. I've got a wire wheel on my grinder there, but that might be a little bit sketchy. Got a bit of a mess going in the shop. Spent a week in California. If you've been watching on our Instagram, we did a Rubitracks invitational down there. Turned out to be a really good time, but made it really hard to get back into things. It just had too much fun, I guess. And now I don't want to work. I definitely don't want to sweep, but at some point I'm going to have to. But today we're just going to work on the fun stuff, and that's getting that thing together. So I got my drill. Put the wire wheel in here. And we'll clean these off a little bit. Before we thread them in. You can hear the air compressor hammering away there. You're going to hear that a lot in these videos. I'm considering either building an insulated enclosure for it, or I don't know, moving it into the other building maybe, but for now we just got to deal with it. Now, somewhere around here, I've got a can of copper coat. I'd like to put a little dab on those things. It's not there, which I'm surprised. Maybe it's over here on this bin. There it is. all over my fingers. Stuff's messy, but it'll make sure if these things have to come apart again someday that they will. It'll also prevent corrosion a little bit. Did we forget to get that one? It's just rusty. I guess everything rusts here on the East Coast. There's not really much we can do about it. Just got to live with it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, to figure out where those go. I think that feels like a big hole up there. That looks like it threads in there. So that fits. One thing though, we don't want to just go straight. The reason I got these lines made a bit long is so that we can put a bit of a jog in it, so that if this thing has some vibration, it'll have a place to go. So I should almost do a pigtail. Maybe that's what we'll do right now, because it doesn't have to look good, right? It just has to work. Okay. Maybe a little bit more. So, if I remember right, on the master cylinder we had our front line went into the back hole and our back line went into the front hole. So, see if we can make that happen again. There, that's one. Don't hate me because I can't make nice pigtails. And I think that goes there and this goes up here. I'm gonna try and sit in here a little different. Hopefully you can still see what I'm doing. Alright. So that goes there. This line's got to go to there. Let's do another. I don't know if we've got enough room for. Oh, I think we do. Enough room for another pigtail. And kind of went on the wrong side, but we'll fix that. Yeah, I think this will work. What do you think? Let me know what you think of this point of view type of video. Do you find it moves around too much, or is it watchable? So we've got our lines in there. If I can remember where I set my wrenches. Here they are. We did replace the brake lines from here to the rear last year, so those lines are all new. The line across the front axle will probably need some attention soon, but again, it wasn't leaking when we pulled this thing in the shop, and this thing being a budget build, we're not going to fix anything on it until it needs to be fixed. That being said, now if you look straight down here, you're going to see we put, maybe you can't see, I don't know, we put new engine mounts in this and new transmission mounts. When I pulled it in, that engine had like nothing connecting it to the frame. I have no idea why it didn't just twist out of there when we were doing our pulling videos, because there was literally nothing holding it in. Everything had disintegrated, but we've got new rubber mounts in there. So the engine's sitting nice now, and we deleted. This truck is a 93 Cummins, first generation Cummins W250, so a 3/4 ton 4-wheel drive. So the 93 was intercooled, which you can see, wow, right here, there's the intercooler pipe that runs up to the front. I don't know if it was the first year or the second year of intercooler, but it also had a computer on it. And we deleted that computer because it was just a rat's nest of wires. I don't think we're the first ones to do it. And these old Cummins, they don't really need a computer to run. We've got this wire right here that will turn on and off the fuel solenoid. And that's basically all we need. We need this wire. You can't see it right now, but we'll have to run a wire over to the alternator. We put a Transco alternator, 12-volt regulator in there, because the computer used to control the voltage regulation. It would tell it to charge or not charge. So now that Transco unit does it. I'll talk about that in a bit. We put a new lift pump on there. I've still got to put the hose on and clamp it. And then we've got to run a couple wires down to our starter. But all in all, this should be fairly simple to get running and keep running. Now we've got those gauges that I showed you right in the beginning. They're just basic mechanical Bosch gauges. One of them will go in here. That's where our oil pressure sensor will be. And then our temperature, I think these wires right here, I think are our temperature. I'm not 100% sure, but I'll figure that out. So we just need to get 3 gauges on this thing, make sure it has oil pressure, make sure the water temperature is right, and make sure that it's charging. We don't need a speedometer because we don't care how fast we're going. And then there's also down in the transmission, this thing had an electronic overdrive. I would like to get to work again, but it really doesn't matter a whole lot because we're not going to be going super fast with this thing. I know the overdrive didn't work last year, and I was able to get this thing up to about 40 miles an hour, which is plenty fast for a 3/4 ton truck with tracks on. So there we have it. Our lines are on. We'll pop our cover off. So the old rubber's seen better days in this thing, but maybe someday we'll get a new cover. That day is not going to be today. It's fairly clean on the inside, actually, other than being empty. So I've got some brake fluid over here. I'm just going to fill it up and then ignore it. It's going to have to be bled, but I think I'm just going to let gravity do its thing for as long as I can. Let the air bubbles rise to the top, if they will, rather than try and shove the air bubbles back down through the system. So we'll give it maybe a day or 2 days to self-prime, and then we'll try and see if the thing's got brakes. And if it doesn't have brakes, then we'll get into bleeding the system. But already there I just seen one bubble pop out. It might be wishful thinking, but this way we'll also see if there's any leaks in the system before we go too far. So I'll leave that right there. So our brake booster is on. Our lines are hooked up. We've got a vacuum line to put on, this is the vacuum line right here. Any luck, that'll still reach. So yeah, that reaches just fine. Now we had another vacuum line coming off of this. I don't recall where that went. I have no idea where that went. This truck, I don't believe, had cruise control. What's this? Oh, this is our fuel, our throttle cable. Anyway, I'll figure that out at some point. We're not starting it today, so okay, we'll call that good for the brakes. Next thing maybe we'll hook up is our throttle linkage. And it just barely reaches here too. See if we can pull that through. That's in. Now, one thing I have to do is put a stop bolt right there, because the way we've got this throttle linkage set up, it'll bolt on there, but there's nothing stopping me other than the cable itself. And if I don't have a physical stop on the bottom, in only a short matter of time, I'll break that cable. So we'll get this kind of half-ass stuck in place, and then I'll mark where we got to put the stop bolt. And then basically all I'm going to do is drill a hole and put this 3/8 bolt through with a nut on either side, and then I can adjust it in and out to stop my throttle pedal where I want it to stop. So I don't even know if we're gonna bolt this in or not, but we'll get it in its ballpark area just by lining it up with some bolts. Come on, go in there. I don't know why that's so hard to go in. It was bolted in before. Anyway, so we'll get our marker, and a little mark right there, and a little mark right there. As long as we drill between those two lines, we should be good. Start out with a smaller drill. That's 1/4 inch steel that we're drilling through. All right, that's one. Now we got to enlarge that hole up to 3/8. A lot easier to drill when you pre-drill the hole. So, we got our bolt here, but I can't find the other nut now. I know I had one. I'll bet you I robbed it and put it on there. So, rather than getting off and going to look for another nut, we'll just steal this one because it'll be easy to put back on later. And then that on there. It's a little tight in the hole, but that's all right. That bolt might have to be replaced with one that's longer, but we won't know until we put the throttle on. We'll just leave it snug for now. And then I don't know what's going on in there. It's either weld splatter in the hole. I think that's what it is. There. That's better. Now you can see, I think you can see, we've got a bit of a physical stop there, right? I can screw that in more if I want to, but we'll get this thing bolted in place first. We're gonna have to go get a nut driver for this. While we're down here, maybe we'll grab another 3/8 nut. I've been robbing them here. Bit of my spare parts. So let me know in the comments how long you'd like these videos to be if you've made it this far. Do you want them to be really long videos? Would you like them to be really short videos? So when I say really long, would you like them to be over an hour? Would you like them to be less than 15 minutes? I wipe my forehead off. Okay, climb back up. We're trying a new style of first-person view, just so that I can continue to work and not lose as much time setting up the shots. Also, I'm hoping that it gives you a better view of my hands of what's actually going on, rather than guessing for half the time. Also, I'm going to try and do it with as few edits as possible. Kind of for two reasons. One, saves us a little bit of time doing less edits, and kind of encourages us to to work a little harder to keep the content interesting, or at least that's my perspective of it. So we'll get a nut on the back here. Plus, you don't want to really see my face, do you? I'm not the best looking of guys. Maybe not the worst looking either, but that depends on who you ask. So there, that's bolted in. We've got our mechanical stop set up. Try and drop our cable in if we can. And so we're stopping, we're physically stopping early. So we'll thread that in a little bit until we feel that we're stopping on the cable and not on the bolt. Because we want this thing to rev out. We still got more cable there. We want it to rev out, but we don't want to break our cable. Right? So I'd say that's all the way right there. I'm going to back it out a little bit. Once we get this thing driving, I'll be able to actually fine-tune that a bit if we need more revs or not. And I'll get down in here now and tighten that up. So there. Now we've got our brake pedal hooked up. And we've got our throttle hooked up. I would like to get my shifter hooked up, but again, don't want to do that just yet because I think I'm going to go and get the plywood for the floor of this thing tomorrow. All right, so that's done. What's next? Start on the steering maybe. Climb down from here. So for the steering, if I can find those parts right over here. Got this shaft right here. This is the second shaft. We want the first shaft, which is right here. Now I've got this already pre-welded and it's splined to go on that steering column. Now we'll have to get a bearing, a couple bolts, a couple nuts. These are bearings. I think in this video, if we can get the steering finished, that's probably going to get us over an hour. Maybe we'll call that good and upload it tonight just to see what your reaction is going to be to it. Turn our camera back a little bit here so you can see what I'm doing. Now this is splined, so there's a groove in the spline shaft that I think we can get with this stop bolt. Oh no, we didn't want to lose that. There. So we're going to have to try, at some point we're going to want to try and straighten out the tracks so that our steering wheel is relatively straight. But we can do that when we're actually putting the wheel on, I think. Plus, if we're a little bit out, we can turn that on the spline, 1 or 2 holes, and correct it. Not that it's really going to matter. I'm sure we're not the only ones that have driven a vehicle with, where the steering wheel didn't match the direction. But it'd be nice to start out somewhat close. So that on there. And then some bolts here. Slide our bearing up to the firewall. Being a little stubborn, but it'll go. One nut in there. Grab the other nut. Start it on. Ooh. You can see here where when I was making this firewall, I guess you can't see, now you can. When I was making this firewall, I kind of screwed up and put the hole too high. And the angle of the bearing was too strong. So we had to move the hole down, but I'll find a clever way to hide that. Not that it really matters for what we're doing with it. Right? So what are we doing this for? Well, that's a good question. Really, it's a two-part answer. It's two different answers. The first answer would be for the fun of it, right? Who wouldn't want a cabin on tracks that you could go just about anywhere with? Now, down where my shop is, in one of our videos, I'll take you down there and show you, but it's maybe at the end of this video, we'll go for a little walk. Me, you, and Bogan. But it's 5 miles of sandy beach down there that, you know, if this thing was on tires, for instance, we probably couldn't get anywhere on because we'd be stuck all the time. But because we've got tracks, the sand won't be an issue at all. So I'll have 5 miles of beach, excellent bass fishing out there, from what I'm told. I've actually never fished them myself. But it'd be a good excuse to go there. Plus, we've got all the woodland around that we can go and, you know, camp overnight with, the bush trails and old gravel roads that we can probably drive on, long as nobody complains too much. So that's the first part of the reason. One is for my own personal enjoyment. The second part is the most obvious one, is for you. You know, I guess the goal is to give you guys a reason to tune in every day or every week, or how often it ends up being that we post this content, and give you something interesting to watch that maybe you're not getting anywhere else. So it's a two-part deal. But the main reason is just because I think it'd be cool, right? We had this old first generation Cummins that you might have seen in our other farming video that we're pulling the harrows with. It's only got 240,000 kilometers, so what's that, like 150,000 miles? So mechanically this thing is still sound. We did the front axle over on it, at least from here out. We did Yukon kingpin rebuild, and we eliminated the kingpin. Actually, we put a bronze bushing in, and then we did a spring eliminator under the cap. We've also got a hydraulic assist on there. I don't know if you can see it, but so we completely rebuilt the steering box and tapped it, put hydraulic assist on just to help steer these things, because these old trucks had a lock and hub that was 6 inches long. So that drove the tracks out, you know, at least 3 or 4 more inches than I would like them to be, a long ways out from the turning axis on the ball joint. And because of that, it makes them really hard to steer on these particular trucks. Now, we could have designed the tracks in such a way that the track would be inboard further, but it was pointless to do that because they haven't made a truck with hubs like that in close to 30 years. And, you know, we're lucky if, you know, one customer out of 50 will have this application for this track. So we didn't see the point in designing this track to suit this vehicle when this vehicle is just barely on the road as it is. So that's doing it this way allows us to keep all our guts inside the track, whereas if we did it the other way, we'd have to have our frames sticking out. Makes them easier to build, easier to ship. Lots of benefits to doing it that way. So anyway, we just wanted to make use of this old truck again because, you know, the old body that was on it was completely trash. There was no floor left in it whatsoever. So I took it upon myself to peel that body off and start building this framework. See this old fuel tank that we got on there? It's a propane tank actually that I've used on the other vehicle. It was just quick and dirty. Anyway, let's get back at what we're doing here. So we're gonna have to weld. We're gonna have to weld here and here, and then actually gonna have to weld our steering wheel on up there. So the worst part is I can't weld this out of the vehicle because I can't fit the U-joint back through the hole. The U-joint's got to go on after this comes through the hole. So I think what I'll have to do is pull this apart. So what I'll have to do is I'll have to weld it on here. Hard to keep the angle right, but I'll get it figured out, guys, don't worry. I'll have to weld it on here first and then put it in the vehicle, slide everything through a bit, weld it on the back side, put it back together, and then put the top bearing on, which will be up here. Put the top bearing on, then put the steering wheel on. The steering wheel is just going to weld on to this shaft. But before we do that, I think the very first thing we got to do is take this over to the lathe and cut some of that stem off because it was sticking through too far. So this is my little Chinese engine lathe. Also, I didn't do a very good job of cleaning it off as well. A real machinist would probably let me know what he thinks, but I'm not a real machinist. I just play one on TV. So okay, see, there's another mistake, leaving the key in the jaw, right? Or leave the key in the chuck. Once again, I'm not a real machinist. So we'll use our part off tool just to knock that last little bit off there. Not going to go too fast because I don't have any coolant on it, but we'll speed it up a little bit maybe. Hopefully you can see what's going on there. We're running a pretty wide aspect ratio on the video just so that you can actually see what's happening close to me. But it's probably, the further away things get from my hands, probably the harder it is to see them, right? And I can't really adjust for that on the fly. So what you see is what you get. At least in this video. If this works out, if you guys like this format, we'll continually improve it and find better ways to do a better job. So there we got the end cut off. And see if I can find the steering wheel, show you what we're gonna do. I had the steering wheel earlier. There it is, sitting right there. So I've got this Jeep steering wheel instead of an old YJ. And the goal is to just send this shaft on through like that and just weld it. Because I'm not going to go through the pain of trying to make a spline to fit that, and I don't think you want to watch me do that either. But I think I can make a little bit tighter fit. I think I can do that. I'll give it a try here. Now see if I can find my turning tool. We've got a single point tool. I bet you any money I took my turning tool out in order to run that single point tool. Yes, I did. So see if we can put this back together. Let me know if, let me know what the walking is like. If I need to like take the time to edit out the walking, is it too shaky? Or can you live with it? Do you want to see where I'm going? Or do you just want to focus on the, or do you want me to focus on the business aspect of the video, the getting it done part? If this works out, if I can run this format with minimal edits, it's possible we could upload quite frequently and keep you more up to date on the progress, rather than if we have to, you know, polish the video up. Because that takes time, right? But maybe it's worth it. Maybe we want to put more effort into a polished video and just upload less frequently. So basically, I think we're good there. I'm going to take this over and we'll put a tack weld on it. Trying to think of how to hold it. I have an idea. Vice grips, a man's best friend next to his dog. All right, I'm not going to do a whole lot of welding in this video just because it's hard to weld and have a camera hooked to your chest. But I think I can get away with throwing a tack weld or two on there, and then when I'm off camera doing some other things, I can I can take care of that. So we'll bring our welder over. And unravel it. I've also thought about doing live. The only problem with doing live is there's a few problems. One, I don't have internet at the shop, but that can be solved. The other problem is the quality is less for some reason. When I try to upload a live, it's only 720, whereas if I film this way, I can give you 1080. So that's a little better. Plus, if I have to go have a piss, you know, I can stop recording and start recording again, where you can't really do that on live. And then if the phone rings, again, I have to stop and answer the phone, or at least I should if I want to continue to run a business. So for now, we're just going to stick with this style and see how you like it. Grab my welding helmet here. Hang up there. I'm actually doing this with my iPhone strapped to my chest. If it works out, I'll probably invest in something like a GoPro that's a bit less bulky. Let me know how the audio sounds in this video. I'm not using an external microphone because the iPhone is right next to my mouth most of the time. So I want to know what you think of the audio. Do you think I should still put the external mic on, or is this audio good enough? I guess I need a ground. No good just hanging there, is it? All right, so we got 3 little tack welds on there, which will be sufficient. And just for the sake of seeing what it's going to look like, stick the horn button on, and then I've got that in place. Take that off. Put this on. That could be tricky. Seems that the end of this is burred a little bit. See if we can find a file before I take it to the grinder. Flat file right here. So I would really like to do a daily show. If we can find a way to get the content, you know, created and then off of my phone and onto YouTube, it would be really nice. But we just got to decide how much time do we want to spend after the fact, you know, polishing the content versus putting it on here, putting it on YouTube, right? So I think that's gonna go. There, we're through. We're through. I think I'd also like to be a little bit, you know, a little bit further back so you get a wider field of view. Maybe with a GoPro I could do that. I do have a GoPro at home, but I don't know. I guess we can run a test. I don't know how long the battery life is on it. And I would like to be able to record for at least an hour, you know, maybe up to 2 hours potentially, without having to stop. So I can't say for sure if I'll be able to do that or not. Why is everything so tough today? I was all together once before. There you go. Bend you back up here again and see what's going on, hopefully. If I had a wider field of view, another thing, like I'm always looking at my phone here to make sure that you can see what I see. I'd like not to have to do that because it slows me down. There. I need to get a brake pedal, like the rubber part that goes on here. I think I know where there's one in a junkyard. We might go look tomorrow for one, but I think I like this. I think I like this. Now we need to get 2 more bolts for right here to bolt that down. Then I'll be able to, when I go to weld that, I'll be able to slide it up anyway, because it's just floating in that bearing right now. There is set screws on it. You can see right there, maybe. One there and one there. So once it's all settled, I can tighten those up. But for now, we'll just let them float until we get it all straightened around. But I gotta find 2 bolts. I know I had to for that. I shouldn't say I know I had to. I think I had to. Don't know anything. I got something in my pocket. No, that's a quarter and a... That's not what I wanted. Okay. I bet you over on the bench we've got... You got any bolts here? There's one. And a nut and a nut. There we go. Stainless steel, but who cares, right? It'll just look shiny. It'll just look shiny. Now if we can square this up some. One, 2, oh, lost the knot, but that's all right. We've got another one. So that's done. You can see the spider webs up in the corner. When I moved into this shop used to be full of potatoes. It was a potato warehouse. And anyway, those spider webs were there, but we didn't notice them because they were white or almost translucent until I started welding and grinding in here, and then the smoke started to settle on the spider webs. You can see them up there as well. So all of a sudden the spider webs appeared, and I've yet to do anything about it. Now we're going to do a little bit of a shop remodel this summer. Not going to go right crazy with it, but I want to make it a little bit more photogenic on the walls. I'm thinking maybe up at the top of the wall, I might paint that all black. And then from, say, this point down, I'm gonna put a big Rubitracks banner over there. Yeah, we'll try and make it a little bit fancier for the viewer. But it's all, we're not gonna stop what we're doing now just to clean the spider webs off, unfortunately. Maybe if I'm lucky, I can hire somebody else to do that for me, like a high school kid. But we'll probably have to move all the machines away from the wall. We're due for a cleanup anyway. Every spring I try to do a cleanup after our winter's production because stuff gets piled in the corners. And if you don't take some time at some point to clean it up, it just never gets cleaned up. And you're, you know, paying rent for square feet that you can't use. All right, so that's bolted in. So we've got our pedals in. We've got our steering wheel in. Brake pedal right there. Throttle cable right there. That's all we need. And then we've got our 4x4 shifter right there. We'll do something about that. And then we'll put our, I'll go and get that. We might as well put the shifter on right now. I can disconnect it easily. There's the shifter right here. This is actually the old shifter off the truck. I just cut it off the steering column. And then I made this bushing, put an arm on it, actually used the actual rubber grommet from the factory shifter linkage. So we might as well put it on there just for looks, right? And that just goes over that bolt right like that. Grab a couple nuts to put on it. I'm sure I've got a couple 1/2-inch nuts here somewhere. Right here. I need to put an eye lock nut on with like a lock washer to keep some tension on it, but I don't have that in my possession right at the moment. I'll grab that tomorrow, but for now, I also should get a stairs to get up and down into this thing. So there we have it. There's all our controls. I'll stand back here so you can see what we're doing. We have all our controls together. We got our brakes, our throttle, our shifter, our steering wheel, and our 4x4 shifter. So I think this is most of today's video. Like I said, this is just an experiment, but I'll show you maybe what tomorrow's video will look like. So I've got this electrical box that I've got to clean up here. And I put a hole in the firewall. So my thoughts are, I'm going to put that right there. And then all this stuff that I got off Amazon, like the key switch and the switches, will go right in the cover. And then this little fuse block will go down inside. And if there's enough room, let's see if we can open this up before we quit for the day. Must have a knife here somewhere. There's a knife. Don't want to get too far away from where everything else is. These are Bosch gauges. It's all mechanical. The thermal coupler is copper. The oil is actually a little piece of conduit. But my thoughts are that if there's enough room, rather than, I could, you know, bolt this under here, which is maybe the better idea. But I was thinking of drilling holes right in the cover and then putting these gauges right in the cover so that all the wiring for the gauges and everything is still contained within here. So I won't have any hanging wires under the steering column or anything. Everything will be in this box and then come out through this side of the firewall, go to the engine or out to the lights and stuff like that. So there, I think we're gonna call this good for this video. See how you like it. Let me know in the comments what you think of this style of video. And if I can improve, let me know how I can do that. Thanks for watching. So this is our sandy beach that I was talking about. Not much sand right around here, but it gets sandy real quick. And that just goes on and on and on and on and on. You can see out there's the lighthouse off of Alberton. So this is what we're building it for. That's the Atlantic Ocean. Somewhere out there is Newfoundland. You can see the banks are eroding pretty bad. We had a pretty bad storm here a year and a half ago, I guess. Fiona comes through here and took its toll. You can see the barrier there and how much erosion. All the soil has gone from behind the barrier, and it's the same all the way along. Even these rock barriers have just all washed away from behind there. But anyway, not my concern. See you in the next video.